And we're live.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Michael Kachmar, and this is Lifeguarding Off Duty
With Dr. Michael Kachmar.
Dr. Michael Kachmar. Today is November 16th, the year of our Lord, 2021. I'm Dr. Michael Kachmar, and we have our off-duty lifeguards. We have Sean. Say hello, Sean. Anything you want to add right now? Like just, tell them how great you are. You worked as a lifeguard this morning, but you see you're off duty, but you were working this morning at the pool. At the pool.
Every morning.
Every morning. He was bundled up. I can't get him to wear a hat during the summer, but he wears a hat and a hoodie and everything else. And we have Tyler.
What's up, guys?
Tyler, welcome. And so we have a great show today. We're going to talk about what we want to talk about today is what we started last show was that the history of lifeguarding, basically how it started. How did people start swimming? Really not lifeguarding, but swimming. Why people start swimming and how that all came about. But before we start that, I just want to throw out a couple things. Sean, can you give people the way to get a contact with us? And big thing is I want we have a email address, which is drkachmar@icloud.com. It's going to go up on the screen right now, and I want to spell it out. It's drkachmar. That's Kachmar at icloud.com. What else? What other places they can get a hold of us?
They can follow us on Instagram at lg.association, lg.association.
Right. And this is a lifeguard news station. So there's going to be three ways you guys could get involved with us. You could come to the studio as an invite, and you could be live. You could also, if you send us an email address, we'll send you a link, and you could come on through your email, and the link takes over your phone or your computer, and we could see you and we could hear you, and you go live, or you could call in, and we have a phone number that we could give you if you send us an email. So I would definitely recommend that. We are right now live on YouTube and live on Lifeguarding. Did you change the, by the way, hate to interrupt.
I did.
You did. So you're not scrubbing up. So, all right. So yeah, we have another channel. It's called Scrubbing Up with Dr. Michael Kachmar. And but we do have YouTube channel right now. And then we'll also put out some short clips of highlights of today's show. So, and our goal is to have as many guests as we can, make it very informative, and communicate between lifeguards. We got a lot of stories out there, and as far as we know, this is one of the only platforms, and we hope we do it once a week, and hopefully we continue on. So, you guys, you guys who you want to start? Tyler, you want to start the show with the?
What do you got, Tyler?
So Tyler, we are in the dark right now. So Tyler's he did the research. We
did
let
a lot
him
of research this week.
Yeah. So we'll see. And so tell us what the research is about, and then what you came up with. So,
well, I mean, I started at like swimming, trying to figure out when people started swimming and whatnot. But obviously,
would a caveman swimming? Would in a lake?
I didn't go far
chasing
that back,
crocodiles.
You
got fossils of the first guy, like when they pitch, you see the people they get like the dinosaurs, or like the people in Pompeii where they were like when they're
frozen,
frozen. You got like a guy frozen swimming in a tar pit.
They found a fossil. I obviously quickly fell into like the history of like life saving and
right.
that type of stuff in general. A lot of it was originally like lighthouses and people like protecting harbors and going out for shipwrecks.
Right, shipwrecks. That's what was in New Jersey. Just to what it started. What I know was the Lifeguard, or Life Saving Association, or Lifeguard Saving, and they had these ships. They would have stations all along, I know, Jersey coast, and they would send the boats out and save the ships.
In Jersey, it was interesting. Jersey is like a jumping point for a lot of like lifeguarding and life saving in the U.S. in general. They got started really early originally because New Jersey, the fact that it's positioned between New York and Philadelphia, so it's got those
a hot spot.
Yeah, a lot of boat traffic.
Very main ports, and from the 1600s, and then when they started kind of recording the data, there's been thousands of shipwrecks out, like right off the Jersey coast. So they really started with lighthouses and light boats was really the
start
origin.
Of it.
Isn't there like a famous Nazi boat off of IBSP or something?
There was.
Kachmar? Do you know that about that? Did you look into that?
Well, you want me?
That wasn't part of what I.
No. Well, real quick, during World War II, first of all, during World War I, the Germans came over here and put a lot of mines, and a lot of ships, mine would be like floating bomb, and
Yeah.
a lot of ships crashed into it. They didn't have radar back then, and they were sunk. So the war was here right off our coast. World War II, I know of one for sure, ship that was torpedoed right in front of Bardigan Inlet, which is, basically New Jersey, and it was called the Gulf Trade, and that got torpedoed.
That was the name of the boat.
Yeah, the Gulf Trade. I actually fished over it. It's a wreck that you could go there and fish over it. They have the coordinates, so it was called the Gulf Trade. And there's people who have written books and they were there fishing when it got hit. They actually saw the boat get hit. That's why during World War II, you had to shut all your lights off. If you lived on the coast, you had to shut your lights off, because if you had lights on land and there was a ship that was between you and the submarine, which is further out, the background of the light would illuminate the ship, and so the subs could hit it. That's why they made everybody shut their lights off. You understand what I'm saying?
That's wild.
So yeah, because they were hitting them. So okay, keep on going. So you had so that started it here.
Well, the earliest.
So it's out of necessity, basically.
Oh yeah. The earliest. So this is.
So they were saving people. The people that they considered, they were saving people from sinking ships.
Yeah, we weren't doing lifeguarding.
Right.
Yet. So right now I'm on the U.S. Life Saving Service Heritage Association page, and they have this cool little timeline about like the chronology. It's called the Chronology of Early Life Saving.
Pull it up.
It's at the bottom of that page you have pulled up. But
so it's the storm fighters.
So it says here in 1708, the earliest Chinese life-saving services were documented.
Chinese.
That's all the way down.
In China, you're talking about.
So yeah, but in terms of like, this is the first kind of documented procedure for life-saving.
In China? Yeah.
In the world.
Oh, in the world. Okay.
Well, China had those big boats.
So 1915.
Yeah, well, the Chinese were sailing around the world before everybody.
Right. But it's called the United States Life Saving Service.
So
that's what morphed into the Coast Guard.
That's part of what I'm going to get into.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So that was in 1708. We see this Chinese kind of organization around just kind of documenting stuff for rescues and how to go about that. Then in 1774, we see the founding of the British Humane Society, which later became the British Royal Humane Society. And that's kind of where like the origins for life saving in this country come from. We saw the Massachusetts Humane Society.
Right. Let me just, Sean, everybody can see this.
I was just making sure.
Yeah. So for our podcast people, if you do listen to this afterwards, go back to our YouTube video and you can see what we're putting up here. We have a lot of the data here just to give you an information so you can look at it. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Tyler.
Made me lose my place here.
That's right.
So the Massachusetts Humane Society is one of the forerunners to the U.S. Life Saving Association, which then turned into the Coast Guard. There are actually two organizations, though, that turned into that. One was Alexander Hamilton founded it. It was called the Marine Association or something like that. Oh, sorry. The Revenue Marine Service, right? That was founded by Alexander Hamilton.
Well, he started the bank, so that makes sense. Hamilton was a big bank guy.
So that was in 1790.
Know your history.
So
so it's probably to correct, like you said, it's probably to collect revenue, tariffs, and money.
That's
and stuff
exactly
like
what
that.
it was for. Yeah, they commissioned.
I don't think he was too worried about people. I'm gonna say that. I shouldn't say he's worried about drowning, but he was worried about the cash.
They commissioned 10 boats to kind of do that, to like collect tariffs and
I didn't know that. I knew they started I knew they had the Lifeguard Association, to save ships that were going down and get the cargo. They'd shoot the thing out and get people, from the mast and bring them in. But I didn't think about that. So that's interesting. So Hamilton, who started the National Bank, he basically had to have a bunch of ships to go get revenue and contraband and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. I learned something. That was Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton is an amazing individual, man. The Hamilton Papers. We should talk. That's not for this show.
Great Broadway play too.
Yeah, but the man himself, and he, you know how he died. You know how Hamilton died?
Was it in like a duel?
Yeah, duel with the vice president. Aaron Burr shot him. And but Hamilton,
that's pretty cool.
If you really want to read something really interesting, is the Hamilton Papers. and they're amazing because they're basically these little little letters, and he would to critique what was going on as the Constitution, the Bill of Rights were being developed. But anyway, go ahead.
But so I mean, not only was he a forefather of this country, he was a forefather of lifeguarding.
Yeah. Wow.
Basically, a lot of my research this week's focused around the U.S. Lifesaving Service, which it wasn't founded in 1948, but that's when they kind of got their start. This is when Congress appropriated 10 grand for, quote, providing surf boats, rockets, carronades, and other necessary apparatus for better preservation of life and property from shipwrecks on the coast of New Jersey, lying between Sandy Hook and Little Lake Harbor.
Oh, wow. So we're right in the midst. So New Jersey's right in the midst of it.
Yeah.
So what we talked about last time, just to try to, tie things in, a lot of the California lifeguarding generated from a different way from Hawaii. Hawaii started it because they were watermen. They were in the water and they were making a living, and they were, but there was also dangerous, probably the people who were kind of similar, people working in the water. And then they migrated to California. And then we read about that guy last week, Joe Pecoraro, who ran and just passed away at 91, the Chicago whole thing. Now, he came from California. So then you got, at the same time, you got things developing in the East Coast in New Jersey. So,
and it all comes out of like some type of necessity.
Yeah, it seems like the East Coast was ahead because that's what California started when the Intercontinental Railroad was completing.
So we were New Jersey.
Like all of it,
we were ahead of it
in this country. Kind of started.
Yeah, you hear that? You hear that, Hawaii?
And in Massachusetts.
Yeah. Give us a call, Hawaii. We beat you on that now, but that's
So also another Jersey guy. It was a New Jersey congressman, William A. Newell, that lobbied for that funding, that original $10,000. Now, it was not until 1871 that the U.S. Life-Saving Service was actually established as an official arm of the government.
What year?
1871. So
okay.
It was I have a quote. So this is a quote from a book titled "A Legacy: The United States Life-Saving Service" by Dr. Dennis L. Noble. I found that there's a link to it on this Life-Saving Service Heritage Association website that we have pulled up.
Good. Yeah. And again, people who are listening to us, this is all going to be, if you listen to us on a podcast, you could go to our webpage. We basically send us an email, but you could archive us on YouTube, and you could watch this and you could see what we're having here. So
yeah, we're trying to bring the visual aids today.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at that picture.
So the USLSS, I believe, is the correct acronym, started with a young lawyer from Maine named Sumner Kimball.
What?
And in this book,
Sumner.
You think Sumner Kimball?
You think Sumner Avenue has anything to do with this, Kachmar?
No, but what? That was his middle name. Whoa! You got me going. Wait, what's his middle name? Yeah. Where does it say that? Increase. You're pulling my leg. I don't know. That's his name. Sumner Kimball.
Yes.
Sounds like he's compensating.
So anyway, Noble says in his book, quote, Sumner Kimball, a young lawyer from Maine, was appointed in 1871 the chief of the Treasury's Department Revenue Marine Division. One of his first acts was to send Captain John Faust of the U.S. Revenue Marine on an inspection of the life-saving network. So between 1848 and 1871, there were very few of these life-saving stations set up along the coast, and it was bad. They were severely understaffed. Dudes were making $200 a year. They pay one guy $200 a year to kind of just keep the life-saving house. And the boats were just in dilapidated condition. Nothing was good. So they sent this guy out to do the survey, and he noted that, quote, rescue apparatus was rusty for want of care, and some of it ruined. Some keepers were too old, few were competent.
Yeah, we'll pay him $200.
And politics had more influence in the selection of keepers than the qualifications for handling boats. In short, the report painted a dismal picture. So I apologize. I said in 1871 the association was formed. It was in 1878. The network of growing life-saving stations was finally organized as a separate agency of the Treasury Department and named the U.S. Life-Saving Service.
Right, and that went into the Coast Guard.
And this turned into the Coast Guard.
Right.
Comparative was 13 years before the Royal Life Saving Service was founded in England.
Oh,
it was
wow.
We
Kimball.
beat England too.
It was our friend
yeah.
Sumner Kimball who remained the superintendent of the service until 1915 when it was replaced by the U.S. Coast Guard, when that and the Revenue Marine Service, which was later titled the Revenue Cutter Service, merged into the Coast Guard. Now, some people will say that the Coast Guard was founded in 1790 with the Revenue Marine Service, but that was just one of the forerunners that led to it.
Good. Hey, Sean, when you put it back up, put the our email address up there for me, would you please? So people want to, if people are watching this, you guys could send us a comment right now on a comment.
Interesting comment here about the
a comment if you want right now, if you're listening to us, but also send us an email. You know, we definitely have to hear if you like this content. Go ahead.
Interesting little fact here about the Massachusetts Humane Society, which was, influenced by the British Humane Society.
See, it's funny you're saying Humane Society, because I guess people were like drowning out there suffering. People were probably yelling and screaming.
It was largely volunteer. So
they probably felt bad for these people, because I mean, why the Humane Society? You think about like dogs and cats, right?
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. I mean,
no,
like why?
Right.
No, it's funny that you mentioned that.
Thing to do.
Yeah, but, I guess that's where it came. You would think that the government would have said, "Hey, enough is enough." But I heard that stories where people would be sitting on the beach or in a restaurant, and one of these boats would go, start to sink, and people would be screaming, bodies would float up, and so it was pretty wild.
Largely volunteer too, and that was one of the main problems, because you'd have these keepers that are only making $200 every year, and something would go wrong.
Yeah,
they'd see a boat going down in the waves, and they would be miles from any civilization. So they'd have to go find people to volunteer, run them back to the site of the shipwreck. And by then, the ship's probably completely busted up anyway.
And you got to remember, when it goes into this Life Saving Association, which I'm more familiar with, I mean, there's actually the headquarters, the old headquarters in Seaside Park. That's where the beach used to come up to. And they had these things right on the beach, and they would have like these railroad tracks that go right into the ocean, and they would launch the boat. These boats were pretty big, and they'd have maybe 8, 9, 10 guys rowing them. I have a picture somewhere.
Giant boats.
Right. And a guy would like till it in the back, and they would row. But you got to remember, a lot of these storms were in the wintertime. So you have a northeast storm in February, January. The water's, 35 degrees. They have life preservers on. They made out of cork, but they're going out there in freezing cold. And you got to think,
the only time they're launching those boats is in nasty, nasty surf.
Right. Yeah. You got to talk about, balls, man. I mean, I'm just like, holy stuff. But anyway, so now when did that?
Those original guys in those early
years,
pre-life-saving service, a lot of them died drilling with those boats.
Oh yeah,
because they would go out and capsize them and drill with them, and that's how a lot of them died. A lot of the early guys were quoted as dying from either that or disease that they contracted on the job.
Yeah, well, what I remember about that, because I was studying it, and I have a couple books on it. So they would have these light shacks or headquarters, and there would be 1 or 2 guys, and they would call the other guys when it came, but they would walk, and they would have lanterns, and they'd walk up and down the beach looking for these ships, because remember, there's no radios. there's no, if there was a ship out there, maybe they could have flares, right? And
that's the thing. There's just no form of communication.
Well, let me see. When was the Titanic? When did the Titanic go down? Because they had ship to shore. They did have ship to shore radio. Now I'm gonna tell you this. Another thing about history. Talk about they did get ship to shore.
1912.
Okay, so by 1912 you had ship to shore radio, and what that was is you would send out a signal from the ship. Now you needed a receiving place, and you guys probably don't even know it, but if you go down in where we are right now, is a place called Ocean Gate, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And AT&T had a huge facility there with all these telephone poles and wires, and that was the main communicator for the ships. And they actually had underground. They also had cables going from Ocean Gate across the ocean. So they had underground cables. That's how things, really, I'm not making sense. That's our area. And the building is still there, but it had ship to shore. So but again, you would have to, you'd have to have a sophisticated scenario. So I don't know when they started to get these things, but they still had to go up and down and get information from, see the ship going down in the flares, and then, call out everything. But but that's another place that we had. So
these dudes were like the original badasses.
Oh yeah.
And they were doing this all in like full wool.
Oh yeah.
So there's
you can see that.
So
here, let me show a picture
you.
here. Let me see. Let me put this up here. So I'm gonna show you guys something here. Hang on. So here's a picture of these guys rowing. And
it's like this. It should fit like 12
this is
people.
this is a
see it,
book.
guys. Yeah. I mean, you guys can see that.
This is a book I picked up. It's titled "Guarding New Jersey Shore Lighthouses and Life-Saving Stations" by David. Forgive me if pronouncing this wrong.
Right
VC.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Images, and there's the David.
Super informative. This is actually what I use as like my jumping point.
There's
the last week.
I have a book about lifeguarding we should bring out, but let me just tell you, from a couple historical things that I know, is that there's, like you said, thousands and thousands of shipwrecks out there, and a lot of them were wooden. They had the mast, but then World War I and World War II, you have a lot more shipwrecks too. And I don't know who was saving those. I'm very sure the Coast Guard was probably involved in that. And right now, just for people who don't know, the Coast Guard in peacetime is under the right now it's under Homeland Security. And if the war breaks out, it'll go under the Navy. So it's a branch of the Navy. But right now it's under Homeland Security. And so they did a lot of work back in those days, saving people's lives. And I don't know how many people they saved. Do you have anything on the Coast Guard? How many people, how that evolved or no?
This all kind of just blends into the Coast Guard. They had the USL. What is it? USLSS.
Yeah.
The USLSS has the coolest saying. They go, the regulations say you have to go out. They don't say you have to come in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that'd be asses.
That's pretty good.
So next question I have for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we see this, what do you call it? Progression going from the saving to the Coast Guard. But where does the Lifeguards branch off? So in other words, you had the U.S., you had the Life Saving Association.
Funny you mentioned that.
Wow.
So I know.
You keep getting ahead of my research.
Okay, well,
I was asking the right questions.
Well, you didn't tell me any of those. So now
we're getting there.
So it branched off to the Coast Guard. They're saving the big ships and things like that. But
Can I read you one more quote before?
Yeah, good.
Actually, a couple more quotes, but there's one that's.
About what dates are we at right now, though? Just for timeline's sake.
We are in like the
almost 1900,
late 1800s.
Okay,
like 1870s is when. So 1878 is when the USLSS was founded. So in this book by Dr. Dennis Noble, a legacy, the United States Life-Saving Service. Pardon me. This is actually from the USLSS website.
Okay.
It explains how people thought of the members of this organization. And it says, quote, "They were called storm fighters and they were called storm warriors. When wind and wave conspired to kill those who dared to tread upon the sea, the men of the United States Life-Saving Service left the comfort of their sturdy stations and entered the battle. With nothing more than wooden boats, cork life jackets, and the oilskin foul weather gear on their backs, they let their muscle, determination, and bravery lead the way. Time and again, they smirked in the face of danger and stole back the lives of men who were supposed to be dead, victims intended to be claimed by shipwrecks caused by storms."
Yeah, and remember, you're talking probably, like you said, January and February when the water was in the 30s.
Yeah, there's not a force on Earth like the ocean.
And cold.
Oh yeah.
We bitch, moan, and groan when we're going in. It's big ocean and it's warm. Like we get thrown around.
Catch, don't make me swim to that buoy.
I mean, listen, if anybody's listened to us, we've all swam in cold water. And I tell you, I've swam in 50-degree water, and you ain't got much time. It sucks it out of you. I watched this one.
The second you hit the water, it's like your chest just.
They took these Olympic swimmers. They did this test. And I remember this one girl. They they have them out like on a little platform, and they're only a few feet away from the beach, and they put them in the water, and they can't even hardly make it in. They're crawling when they get there. I mean, it's so cold, and I think with like 35-degree water, you might have maybe 10 minutes, and then you pass out. You go into hypothermia. You get so cold, and so think to these guys. I mean, forget about they're falling in the water, because I think if the boat capsizes, you're dead. I mean, maybe even if you float, you're so cold. How long do you? How long, I think you're done. I mean, maybe some of those guys were tough. I know a lot of them used to wear woolen sweaters. It keeps the water off you, and you probably could survive.
Well, they had like the harpoon gun that they would shoot to a shipwreck, and pulley them back on. It was like it looked like a boat that would just hang on.
Gadget.
It was a caffeine.
Yeah. It was literally a James Bond gadget.
Yeah, it was like a coffin. They would shoot the line up, and then they would have these lines set up, and then they would it's like a little coffin. They would push it all the way out, like on ropes and pulleys. So guys, so when did we're all anticipating here, where everybody's waiting for the.
Where did the lifeguards start?
When did the lifeguards start? Yeah, when did it start with Baywatch, or like what happened all of a sudden?
Was that a TV show before everything?
So when did it start?
Atlantic City.
See, that's what we thought.
So
that's what Joe Casino was telling me. Atlantic
unofficially,
City. So go ahead.
Unofficially, 1855
in Atlantic City.
So so this is from the Atlantic City Library, the Atlantic City Public Library. The Atlantic City Beach Patrol is the oldest operational lifeguard organization in the United States. In 1855, the city council appointed William Kachmar. The city council appointed Dr. Michael Kachmar.
That's my great uncle.
William Kachmar to the position of this is the coolest, and we should bring this back. The position of Constable of the Surf.
Oh, really?
Constable of the Surf.
I like that.
I like that. So in 1855, a Constable of the Surf was appointed. There you go. That's your first lifeguard in the United States.
Wow.
In response to the growing popularity of Atlantic City's beaches, the ACBP expanded. By 1872, although it was an all-volunteer patrol, the ACBP had more than 20 lifeguards on its staff. The patrol was fully incorporated and joined the city payroll on June 12th, 1892. Amongst the first lifeguards to be paid by the city were Jim Jeffries and Nick Headley. The first lifeguard. First lifeguards.
That's pretty interesting.
Oftentimes, additionally worked on the police force. Victorian era customs dictated that proper individuals not bathe in the late afternoon sun. The lifeguards remained on duty from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m.
Wait, what was the Victorian era customs? They couldn't bathe at a certain time?
Yeah.
You could not bathe in the late afternoon sun. I wonder if they had any like dress codes.
Yes. Oh, yes, they did. The women could not have, they had to have their ankles covered, their legs completely covered. If you look at the pictures, I have pictures of this. We'll bring it next time. I have a book somewhere. And the men had to wear a tank top. They wore a shirt. That's why Atlantic City, you had the red shirts, and that's why Seaside Heights, which we belong to, when I first started in the 70s, we had the red tank top. And so
that's funny because
you covered, you couldn't have your nipples exposed, especially if you were a man and a woman, but men too. What were we gonna say?
I've heard a lot of the old timers complain about those red tank tops, and during my research, I ran into like a little comment about how when the Coast Guard was formed.
Yeah, again, look at the suits here.
We're listening to you.
They had them start wearing all white uniforms because people were complaining that they couldn't tell that they were Coast Guard, and they would get scared if their boat was going down and these guys were standing on the beach shooting harpoons at their boats.
I see what you're saying.
So that's why they started making them wear uniforms.
Yeah. So Sean here has so people who are watching on a podcast, you could again look at our.
This is more clothes than people wear now.
Yeah. Look at our YouTube video or Facebook video. Right now, we're showing pictures of the girls. I mean, they're fully clothed. I mean, it's kind of wild. And look at the men with the striped suits. They look like they're in jail. So you guys can't see it, but it's amazing. Yeah. But I didn't know that. That's very interesting what you're saying. So you're saying that they worked, the lifeguards, nobody was allowed in the water. So they worked from 11 to 1 p.m. and that was it.
Wow.
In the afternoon, it was considered inappropriate to go in the water.
11 a.m. until 1:30 p.m.
Wow.
What do you think? You think people were drinking at that point? Because this is 1850s.
Well, people were drinking all day back then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, they
like,
drink
I was
now. I mean,
well, yeah.
I heard that it was like a sport. It was like you go there, you go in the water, you get invigorated, then you get like rubbed down, and you like this whole thing, Well, yeah. I mean, of course, you got to take a shower. I mean, I think we forget, and like you guys are younger than me, and what I had when I grew up was different than what you guys have now. But back then, I mean, remember there was electricity. Like the Panama Canal, World War I was 1914. They just started with electricity, a little bit before that. I mean, there was no TV. There's no such thing. There's no phone. I mean, when did the phones come around? I mean, you're starting
late 90s, right? Or when was the first cell
no,
phone?
no. I'm talking about
80s?
I'm talking about phones, just phones.
Oh.
I mean, you had them during like the
Definitely,
40s,
yeah,
but
end of World War One.
I mean, I'm not too sure how much you had. I don't think, so I don't even know, but back in these days, there was no radios. There was, that's why you had flags. How do you communicate with a lifeguard? Like now we get on the radar, Kachmar to headquarters. There you had to like have a flag or a flare.
Send a smoke signal.
Well, yeah. That's how with the planes and everything, they used to have bonfires. So to, direct planes in. That's why they had lighthouses, they had the light. So you got to go back and think about what you had back in those days and the mentality. Plus, I think a lot of people were still scared of the ocean. You still had a lot of activity with marine life. I mean, there was bluefish all the time. There was sharks.
Yeah.
That's where you have Shark River Inlet. I mean, a bunch of kids got killed there. There was people. I remember one in the 60s. Now I wasn't around, but I remember the story. It was around here. I don't know if it was Island Beach State Park, whatever. In the 60s, some guy got killed by a shark. So you do got to remember it's a different time. You look at the water and the water's bubbling with fish and birds coming down. You're like, I ain't going in there. So Atlantic City was the first beach patrol. So did they predate then? I guess you don't know about Hawaii.
They predate everybody in this country.
But Hawaii wasn't a state at that time.
That's what I was.
What year was this? Like 1850s?
So when did that?
1855 was the appointment of the Constable of the Surf.
So the Intercontinental Railroad ended around 1863. So this beat California Guards by like 10 years. How could we have had Hawaiian guard?
What the point?
No, when did
Kachmar's
Hawaii
making
start?
Is that
Though?
Hawaii hasn't. Hawaii could have had lifeguards before they were a state,
right? So
or they could have been doing something.
So, and you also got to take into consideration what's significant about 1863. Do you guys have any? And what was the big event that was happening in 1863?
Civil War.
Yeah, Civil War. Ain't no bullshit. So, yeah, the Civil War. But my question is,
that was actually one of the reasons why when they did this survey,
right,
in the late 1800s, that all of these life-saving stations were in a state of neglect.
Okay.
Because of all the resources getting pumped into the Civil War.
So let's look here. So now we have up here, Sean has the Sean. So what do you look? We're looking at the
quick Google search. We think 1912 is
in
when?
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow.
So when are we saying Atlantic City started?
1855.
1855. So they're saying, and what is Hawaii saying?
They started paying lifeguards.
Yeah, they're saying 100 years of Oahu
in
lifeguards
1892.
in 2017.
So when did it start in Hawaii? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused here. So
around 1910, 1920, 1912. This one says
1912, and we're talking about in Atlantic City
over 50 years before that.
Wow. So then truly Atlantic City was the first.
Yeah.
So wow. And then we started in Seaside Heights. We're a pedigree of Atlantic City because John Boyd, who was one of the original captains, was an athletic director down Atlantic City, and he took that model and brought it to Seaside Heights. Now, what year did we start our beach? I know not when we got incorporated. When did our beach start? Because it's different. I think 39.
I think the first official date of the establishment of the Seaside Heights Beach Patrol, and this is something that gets debated all the time.
Yeah,
but what number that I have on it's SHBP shirt that says established on it says 1934.
Okay. All right. So it was a while, and we got to remember these towns were just starting. So that's interesting. So
well, because this all started with you last week at asking about when people started swimming as a leisure activity.
Yeah.
So it's at
Yeah.
least as far back as before 1855 because they decided that
Wow.
they need someone to watch after these people.
Wow. That's
But
pretty wild. That's
I
pretty
actually ended up in medieval Europe too.
wild. Oh God. All right. So when did they?
What do we got?
So in it, what? Now you say first in the United States. So when? What about? So in the whole world.
So we know
like what about like was there?
So we know
Alexander the Great?
British. We know the British Humane Society. That's 1774. That's a few years before the Massachusetts Humane Society. Before that, we have the Dutch Humane Society. Similar lifeboat, life-saving kind of situation. And then before that, it gets kind of muddy. We have the Chinese.
I just can't. Chinese, that blows my mind.
Yeah, when was China again?
Well, like I said earlier, they're like historically, like they were the greatest seafaring civilization. But I did find some.
I don't know about that.
No, China was definitely China was sailing.
They
think they were in the Atlantic by before anything. I don't know the dates. I don't want to.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting.
We don't know anything about that far back.
Yeah, that's next time.
No. But it's interesting. It's interesting to.
We can have Graham Hancock on the show.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting about the history. I mean, Europe. You think about the Mediterranean. I mean, think about the Roman Empire. I mean, there was water all over the place. I know they had baths, but did you find anything about
46 BC? Roman law establishes regulations.
Okay, stop now. Wait, 40. Slow down. 40 what BC? Now, what is BC? So you remember what BC
before
means?
the Common Era?
No, before Christ. Okay, stop. don't bullshit. It's before Christ. Okay, stop it. So BC. So how much before BC?
46 years before the Common Era.
Okay. And what happened?
Roman law establishes regulations requiring assistance to shipwrecked seamen and provides that owners of vessels have 1 year and a day to file claims for recovery of wrecked ships and cargo. And before that, Alexandria had a lighthouse.
But that was supposedly one of the seventh wonders of the world.
Yeah.
That was one. Yeah.
It was like the giant statue of the guy holding almost kind of like a Statue of Liberty type situation.
Yeah. You got to think that the Greeks and the Romans, because they were pretty sophisticated and they were pretty civilized, you would think that they would have picked up, had some kind of water sports or somebody.
Well,
if you have water,
baths. So what happened was people kind of like started shifting away from being in the sea due to like myths and religion and thinking that there's a sea serpent or
the Kraken
or the Kraken. Yeah, there was a lot of that. And in Rome,
topic for next week: sea monsters.
Oh, please don't do that. I would love that so much. But in Rome, what kind of was going on was these people they figured out the aqueducts, right? So they had all this water available, and like you said, they had the Roman baths. That was their version of swimming. They weren't in open water, so nobody knew how to swim because they're wading around in waist deep water the whole time.
So maybe the first lifeguard was like Rectus Amarius Lupus.
Well, listen to this.
And he watched.
This is something crazy because you.
And he watched the pool.
Because Kachmar, you said
he watched the pool.
You said last week that you didn't think people were really swimming back then, and Sean and I disagreed with you.
Right. So you found somebody swimming.
Well, no, I think I found out that you were right. I want to share with you some of these drowning numbers. Okay, so. Well, here I'm gonna read you a quote from this.
Go ahead.
From this article. It's titled "How Europe Learned to Swim." It's from History Today. But like I said, swimming was becoming less and less common for a whole bunch of different reasons. In Rome, you had the baths. In medieval England and stuff like that, you had all these superstitions regarding swimming.
Right.
So this article says, quote, "The return of swimming," and this is a bit of a long one, but I make a point. "The return to swimming in Western Europe was an excruciatingly slow process that began in the 16th century. Although we have no statistics for death by drowning in Tudor England, their number was probably greater than in the UK in the late 19th century, when between 2,264 and 3,659 people drowned annually. You might think that the only sensible countermeasure against drowning would be to teach people how to swim. But in the 1530s, German schools and universities decided that the best remedy would be a total ban on swimming, which in the university town of Ingolstadt on the Danube was punishable.
The Danube, probably.
The Danube?
No, it's the Danube. It's pronounced the Danube.
With the B in there, though? That's
Yeah,
how
I
it's
think it's
spelled?
Germans, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's silent. Yeah.
Ingolstadt. I think I nailed that one.
Yeah.
Ingolstadt on the Danube.
I thought you were German.
Tyler, you're nailing actually this whole episode. I want to just
Okay.
point
Yeah?
out.
So
Good
go ahead.
research.
So
Thoroughly
go ahead.
researched,
So go
right?
ahead. So the
Really good.
Danube. So go ahead.
Was punishable by the whipping of the drowned offender before burial.
No, they
Imagine-
would drag. Hey, that sounds like Seaside Heights. When we
No,
we
imagine if
rescue him and
did
then
that.
we rescue him and then we lock him up.
Hey, I'll bury you under the pier.
Now we know where we get that pedigree from. If people go, I remember we used to, they wouldn't listen to us. They wouldn't listen to us. They drown, and we bring them in, and then we have the costume and we handcuff them. They get arrested.
Whipping
Oh,
of the
man.
drowned offender
Oh.
after burial.
Oh man,
a
talk about. Oh my
A
God.
similar ban.
Where'd they do
on
that in Germany?
This was Germany. A
Oh,
similar ban on
they're
swimming.
niche. Oh man, those people. Oh man, go ahead.
A similar ban on swimming in the Cam came into force in Cambridge in 1571 with severe punishments for infringements, 2 public whippings, a fine of 10 shillings, and a day in the stocks for a first offense and expulsion for the second. So I want to dig into those drowning numbers a little bit, and then I want to talk about like these kind of punishments and
Yeah, man was
because
just not meant for
it seems
water
like
then.
this seems like some kind of like ridiculous savage kind of
Well, you got to
really
remember. You got
backwards
to but you got to
lifestyle.
remember.
But there what the point I'm making here is there were people during that time that I'm going to point out in a minute that were thinking a little more progressively about this. But I want to point out these drowning stats, right? So we said in the late 19th century, right, in England, between 2,264 and 3,659 people drowned annually. Okay. During that time, I did a little quick maths on this. During that time, there were 16.8 million people living in England. Okay. So we'll take an average between those two numbers of around 300 or 3,000. Sorry, 3,000 drownings in a population of 16.8 million is a number of 0.01% or 1 in 10,000 people. Okay. In modern day USA, with a population of 330 million, we have an average annual number of drowning victims of 3,500 people. So that's only 500 people more, or 1 in 100,000.
Right.
So,
Well, but
so Kachmar, to prove you right from last week, nobody knew how to swim back then.
Right.
Okay?
And
You
also,
win, you win.
You were
Right.
right.
Also-
I did a week of research to prove you right.
Well, you got to understand a couple of things. First of all, it's how close you are to water. I mean, if you live in Kansas City, I mean, there's lakes and everything. I guess you could drown. But so if you're surrounded by water, there's more chance you're drowning. So statistics could be, a little bit. But here's the thing: people who live in day to day. I don't think from a sociology standpoint. You didn't have the leisure. People didn't have the leisure we have now. Basically, you got up, you worked your ass off, and it was subsistence, right? And the average lifespan, I think, back in those days, way back then, is like 30 years old.
You don't got time to go for a jog and have a spa day.
No. You were just surviving, and so that's it. But I think that's what's interesting about all of this is that. Oh, by the way, the first, you talk about, but I find that. We probably don't have the statistics or the written, what's the word I want to use? Written history, but I bet you any amount of money, like I said, the Greeks and the Romans, there's a lot of water around here. They were probably in the water.
And
right.
And what we're talking about today is like a very surface kind of brush over all of this. I plan on going a lot deeper into all because there's a bunch of stuff in here that really, really, really interested me a lot that I just did not have the time to dig into properly.
Do you think the depiction of like all the sea monsters and stuff was just a way to get people to not go in?
No,
just a way to keep
Why
them.
not? Yeah.
I think people saw
Just-
things. People see things. Yeah.
So what do you think they saw? Like a
Whales.
colossal squid or
Whales.
I don't think it was that intentional. I think people were just
listen, you start
superstitious back there.
naturally-
They didn't have the type of science to explain these things. So
Right, and
everything was at the hand of some type of god.
And with
Right.
all these deaths, they were just naturally afraid of the water. Like it killed so many people.
Yeah, if you don't learn how to swim, if you don't have a training regime, but
People back then had a tendency to relinquish control to a higher power.
right. Well, but what I wanted to know, and
As they do now.
But what's really interesting is that it started in the United States and probably Western civilization is when we started to get industrialized. It sounds to me like the Industrial Revolution
kicked this off.
Right, kicked it off. We had more money, we had more time, more leisure time, and we started to go to the beach, and a lot of it too was because of necessity. You know, you had to have commerce and things moving along. But the specific thing about lifeguarding and people on the beach started to turn of the century.
More
And-
leisure. You had more time
Well,
to
you
do
got to
it.
think like, right. More ships coming to the coast, shipping more goods,
Mhm.
more shipwrecks,
Yeah, more trade,
necessity.
more money.
Mhm.
People were making
Yeah.
more during the Industrial
Now-
Revolution.
Now,
But
yeah,
it's crazy that there's this direct lineage between us and basically these fishermen and, you know, anglers
Sure.
and
sure.
boat captains that, you know, were just brought into this service, right? This service of keeping an eye on the waves and putting their own lives at risk to go out there
Right.
just because they understood the surf, right? Just
Right.
because they have that basic ability that we try so desperately to get every lifeguard to do, and that's read the water.
Yeah,
Right.
some would call all of us watermen, if you will.
Some might
Right.
call
Waterman.
waterman. I
Waterman.
love that term so much.
Right. So you know, you got
really do.
you got the thing where people are out there fishing and you know, plying their trade, making a living, and they, because of the you know, the storms and the bad weather and the boat sinking and fog and crashes and war, you know, you need to have these people to save lives, and that developed. And then of course, when we have leisure time, people started going to the beach, and the same thing happened. What I think is interesting is that there's also, that's one parallel. That's one thing we talk about. But the other thing you have to bring in, I want to mention it to our colleagues and other people, there's another thing that's happening, and this was probably where it started in Hawaii, was these people were actually, you know, in an early time, I don't want to say playing in the water, but they had these trimarans. They were competing.
They were
you know, rowing.
I feel like they were definitely playing in the water because
Right, and then they started surfing.
And this is
Yeah.
this is the argument I was making about, you know, natives in this area, is that their lives were so tied to the water.
Right. So, but
they're out there all day anyway. And
Right.
like Sean said, you know, you're
Right.
rowing in. Well, you're not trying to catch a wave, but at some point you're going to catch a wave and realize that one,
fun.
it's quicker,
It's fun.
and two, most importantly, it's
fun.
fun.
Right. So we had, so you have the lifeguards, and then you have another whole thing that grew up, and that's surfing. And we could talk about that, you know, anytime, but surfing
You've
is
seen the Endless Summer, right?
well, yeah, the Endless Summer, but surfers, there's thousands and thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of surfers. They're in the water. They know the water. They make thousands and thousands of rescues. You know, the surfers in our area, when we leave the beach at night, or, you know, when we're not around, they make a lot. So that's another thing that you could discuss, the history of surfing and how that kind of, you know, we got to get somebody in
Yeah,
here.
the Polynesians.
I'm
The
just picturing,
Polynesians.
I'm just like, I'm obsessing over this like direct lineage, but I'm picturing like just this salty like dog lighthouse keeper, and then there's just a direct line to like the 16-year-old green rookie sitting next to me on my lifeguard stand.
Yeah. And
That's
but,
never
but,
swam
but you know,
a
but somewhere,
rope out in his life.
but somewhere along the line, the you know, there's another branch that cuts off where you have surfers.
Yes.
And that's another whole entity, because it's huge. I mean, there's, I mean, if you look at the literature,
and that's something that's kind of like developed like side by side with Lifeguard,
I mean,
because and as weird as it is, you don't see
no,
those two worlds like.
no, then, and I'll give you another world, which is also was probably in the 16th and 17th centuries. I definitely know the 17th century was racing and sailing.
Oh yeah.
And that is another, you know, water, because, you know, you could look at Moby Dick, you know, they were out there with the boats and, you know, the ocean and sailing, but then, so then you have that whole thing where there was big time. It's today, I mean, you still have thousands and thousands. I sail. I mean, sailing is a huge passion. So another thing that broke off, because people, you know, yeah, I'm sorry, what were you
I
gonna
think
say,
something
Sean?
that draws all these people in is the ocean when it's rough. It's hills of rolling water, and it just looks incredible. If you're out there on a board or a boat, like it
speaks to you.
It looks, you just don't, you know, you don't belong in this environment, and you are. It's incredible.
Right. I just think what I'm trying to make the point is that, you know, us as lifeguards, we don't have the monopoly on the ocean. You know, and you know, you have surfers that were probably at the same time or coming off of. That's another thing we should research. Like, so where did the break off come from surfing? I think it like Hawaii.
Yeah.
Probably surfing started in Hawaii. I don't know if anybody
It
was
was
surfing.
definitely like a Hawaii, Cali thing.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
Cali,
I think Hawaii.
but so when you talk about surfing now, you know, so we're establishing the pedigree of lifeguarding, maybe starting in New Jersey because of the life saving, but it's probably, I bet it's pretty damn close with Hawaii.
Officially in this country, lifeguarding started in New Jersey.
Well,
Okay.
it sounded because of the
Take that to the
Industrial
bank.
Revolution,
Well,
just the amount of money going into the tri-state area caused leisure to happen and
Well, of course, the shipping too, going back and forth from New York.
commerce.
But my thing is that you also have sailing and surfing.
Okay,
and
here you go.
So where that and
Well,
you
we
know,
just happened
earliest
to be on the coast.
evidence-
People were sailing on South Carolina, but I think specifically the amount of money that was just coming in this area
right,
brought in enough free time for people to start going to
Right,
the beach.
right.
and
That's
then
why.
drowning.
right,
That's why all of this started here.
Yeah,
It was New
100%.
York, Philadelphia,
yeah.
those two, you know, what is it that you have the Delaware Water Gap and then what's down south? Cape
What-
May.
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
the Delaware
those two-
Water Gap is up in North Jersey.
How do
No.
you get into New York City? What do you
Hudson, the Hudson
Hudson,
River, the
okay,
Hudson.
so,
Yeah,
but
you had Hudson.
you have those two
yeah, right.
major ports,
Right,
biggest ports in the country
and
at
Philly.
the time.
You could take a boat all the way up to Philly, yeah. And then of course you had Chicago and the Mississippi, but
And
that's another
the
waterway.
the odds of those guys surviving a shipwreck
Yeah,
were
but, yeah.
astronomically low. I mean, you would have, because these barrier islands weren't really that inhabited, so
No.
you'd have a shipwreck in the middle of winter,
Mhm.
and even if you made it to shore, you are
Right,
freezing cold,
But-
suffering, fighting elements. You know what you guys? I'm sure you've read this, The Open Boat.
No.
Who wrote that? The Open Boat. It's an amazing short story.
But if you but
Oh,
like,
Stephen Crane. I'm an English
Yeah.
major. Why would I
Yeah.
not know that? The Open Boat by Stephen Crane. It's an amazing short story that everyone should read, especially that loves the ocean.
But people should understand, you know, our we talk about this topic today is because we wanted to see what happened with the lifeguarding, but there's so many other areas that were probably pretty close to the start. And like I
Yeah.
said, surfing. I think we should probably a good chance to start in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then
I
maybe
actually have that pulled
California.
up right here. The earliest evidence of surfing history, and this is just
Just
colle-
random.
collections of Waikiki.com. The earliest evidence of surfing history can be traced back to the 12th century Polynesia, so the 1300s.
There you go. There you go. And that's surfing. Is that surfing boards or
Cave paintings have been found which clearly illustrate ancient versions of surfing along with many other aspects of their culture.
wow.
They brought surfing to Hawaii and it became popular from there.
Brought it from where though?
From Polynesia to Hawaii.
Okay. So there's that connection. And then of course they were lifeguarding and they brought that to Cali. And then Cali, some guys from California, like that guy Joe Pecoraro, went to Chicago.
Australia too, I think, got it around the same time as Cali.
Right.
Also,
So they may have got it from Hawaii or
Hawaii,
you know,
I think, was the origin, or I guess it sounds like Polynesia.
planetsurfcamps.co.uk also is quoted. I don't know.
and then one other
Saying
thing.
it's from Polynesia.
So one other thing,
Saying
guys,
surfing is from Polynesia.
look-
Crediting. That's the word I was looking for.
look at this. When did competitive sailing start? Like, like what year in the United States? Can you look that up real quick? When did we have when did sailing start? Like 16th, 17th century? Because we had commerce. Sailing was, but
Well,
when did they start doing it leisurely, like competitive? So that would be, when did competitive sailing or racing start?
I can tell you when competitive lifeguard competitions
No.
started. in England.
I want sailing. I want sailing. Sailing.
No.
Because that's another,
Don't do it.
that's a huge thing. Sailing.
I want to get into that a little bit though, because that is, let's see, competition, U.S. sailing. No.
Sailing. When did sailing?
This is a tough one because now you're dealing with a million different
No, yeah. Imagine how long ago people were sailing boats.
organizations.
Well, but I'm just saying that, they were in the water. They were, I mean, they had, what I'm saying
Well,
is
that was
this,
probably
it's-
the Polynesians too.
but I'm asking, because, you talk about people who are in the water. I mean, if you're sailing, one of the sailing boats go down, somebody had to be rescued. I mean, they had to know the water. They had to know the storm. So it's another group of people.
Okay,
in
here you
an
go.
endeavor that's really related to what we're talking about. History of
I'm
sailing.
looking at athleticscholarships.net. Or what are you looking at, Kay?
Infoplease.com.
Oh, here. What
It's saying sports sailing or yachting originated in the 17th century in Holland.
There you go.
Hole in
So 1720 or 1666. Yeah, look at that. So we have it up on our YouTube.
The first time
if you guys want to
sailing
look at it.
was
Yeah.
noticed as a true sport was in 1896 when it became a part of the Olympics.
Oh wow. Yeah, but it
And
was
has been
before
part
that.
of the Olympics since. Both men and women participate all.
Right. So we're part of a big family. You have lifeguarding, you have sailing, you have surfing, and a lot of these things are not like surfing and sailing wasn't just started in 1990. I mean, you're talking about 16th, 17th centuries. People were sailing competitively, surfing the Polynesian. So there's a long pedigree of people in water. But when we when we key down on the lifeguards, in Seaside Heights, Atlantic City, that's more the industrial age when there's a lot of money, and we talk about saving people, because we could have Coast Guard here. They do. I mean, they save. There's the PJs, which is another. It's a branch of the Air Force, and they're specifically made to or established to save pilots, down pilots. And if you read The Perfect Storm, the book, the one PJ who got lost, I think his name was Smith, and they're different than Coast Guards. PJs, Coast Guard goes from interior United States to 200 miles out, and of course they do. In the war, they'll go to different countries and everything, but they're basically 200 miles out. And then you have what's called the PJs, which is another saving entity, and they're specifically made to save pilots. They'll help other people, but they go 200 miles and further out.
This is slightly off track, but how good is the movie Dunkirk? Did you see that, Kachmar?
Yeah. Why? Yes, because it's of course the water.
The guy's flying over and crashes. I don't want to spoil.
Yeah,
too much.
Yeah.
But
well, it's like it's history, right? So what are you really spoiling?
No, just the actual story of the movie. The guy, there's a fighter pilot.
Well, it's a beach scene. I mean, if you could tie it into what we're talking about, I mean, it is on the beach.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
So what happened was
the guy crashes on the beach at the end.
It was the British were banged. They were pushed back to the water to Dunkirk.
Yeah.
And it looked like they were going to lose. I mean,
they couldn't get back to.
Didn't they pull off like the Greatest Escape?
Well,
yes, civilians
saved
the people, the soldiers, and they brought them back to Britain.
Yeah.
A little bit of lifeguarding right there.
Yeah.
It's a little lifeguarding, maybe.
I read the book, and I don't know how much. I mean, the military, the Navy did a great job, but they had a lot of civilians that helped, and I think the civilians, what they did is, I don't know how many people they really saved, but
I think you couldn't attack the civilians without America getting involved was the big political aspect of it. Seriously,
I love history.
But what I think was also is that it was a rallying cry. It was not propaganda. That's not the word I want to use.
But it was like a turning point, right? They were like, oh wait.
It gave people hope, right? And they saved a lot. That turned the tide, because all of those soldiers were saved to fight another day. They were ready to fight.
It's crazy. Every great event in history, you look back and there's some type of waterman pulling the strings.
70% of the planet's covered in the ocean.
Right. So no, that was a big thing. But I think that it was a patriotic thing, and it's amazing. Yeah, but the one guy, the one
fighter pilot,
he lands on the beach, and he gets, he just ran out of fuel.
Best war movie since Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. A lot of people, there's a lot, but anyway, it is a beach scene. It is water, and you're right. There's a lot of, I mean, you could go crazy with the battles. I mean, there's been, I don't know, we get into a whole thing. That's another day. It's almost done with the show. You can get into big Navy battles, but I just wanted to stay focused on the lifeguard stuff, and that we work for the Seaside Heights Beach Patrol, which is an old beach patrol that came from and mimicked Atlantic City.
Branch off of the first beach patrol in the United States.
Right. And now, there's
called tradition,
and there's a lot of lifeguards. In fact, we're going tonight to the lifeguarding. It's the Chiefs Association in Avon by the Sea, which is north of us today. And we have a meeting to talk about, CPR and basically lifeguard stuff, so we just don't do it, in just 3-4 months in the summer. We do it all year round. So we take it really serious. And I think that a lot of kids who work on the beach patrol, they work maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they actually legit save somebody's life. And they go on to become an accountant or whatever, and great careers, but never had the opportunity to save anybody's life again.
It builds great people. It really does.
Oh yeah.
Also prepares them for the unlikely event that they do have to save someone.
Yeah. I mean, I work with you guys, and I come down and I kid around, but there's days where we got thousands, hundreds of people in the water, maybe thousands, and it's a lot of responsibility, and you could definitely get overwhelmed, and like for me, when I'm up there, and I'm the only guy up there, the officer, and I got a concert going on, I got wine tasting, and girls doing pole dancing around the poles. I got you guys wearing your hats backwards, not listening to me, and you got people. I mean, one day I remember within a half hour, 4 or 5 lost kids. 2 of the kids that the parents were panicking, thought they drowned in the water. I get one of you guys, remember the one guy calls up, one of the lifeguards, there's 3 people unconscious on the beach. It just goes on and on and on. So, we deal with a very fluid, dynamic, and potentially dangerous environment. And you got to be a certain kind of individual. And if you make it and stay there, it shapes you into an individual that's could handle almost anything, so.
Listening to you say this, I'm thinking about like how far, right, we've come from the original USLSS and then the Revenue Marine Service and the Revenue Cutter Service, these forerunners to the Coast Guard and the forerunners to Atlantic City, and what the major differences are. And I think one of the major differences is the preventative aspect of what we do now. I think that it's just become like, just keep people out of these situations, where these original guys were just walking around the beach, seeing shipwrecks and just doing whatever they could to scramble to get it together and save them.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about earlier this episode, they lost a lot of people doing that, which is why we are so on track to try and not have to save people hundreds of yards out.
And everything in this game is so trial and error. Like there's probably going to be a bunch of stuff we do now that we're going to look back on 10, 15 years from now and be like, wow, that was inefficient.
I don't know. I would
swim out a rope can, for example. There's no way that we're not going to have some C-Bob type contraption that's going to get it out there in 2 seconds.
Maybe, but I could tell you there's certain absolutes that are not going to change. I mean, unless we evolve into some other kind of creature, like with fins, and you're gonna
if we can build a creature with fins.
You think about it. You got about 100 years of lifeguarding, right? And because really, it's about 100 years. I mean, if you look at our beach, some of the beaches started in the 20s. Every beach has done every kind of different lifeguarding, like saving, and boats and cans. And now you got drones, which are interesting because you could have a drone right now and go over and see somebody drowning and drop a buoy. You got, like you said, the jet skis, they're getting better and better, and we're getting better at using them. You got sea bobs, which could help you facilitate swimming. So there's a lot of different things. Also, there's a lot of education and preventative. We know now we have satellites. We know the weather. We could predict the oceans. So there's a lot of things, but still, we have the human frailty. You sit there and. Is every lifeguard can see everything that's happening. There's still mistakes being made. People go in the water intoxicated, high. They have a heart attack. I mean, so you got a 52-year-old guy who's swimming, out, and it's not a really bad day, and he has a heart attack, and he's going down. I mean, you got seconds, and maybe even if you do get him, he may die from the heart attack or a seizure. So it's still that lifeguard swimming out there with the freestyle, humping it out and getting that person and then get him in. So, and I don't know, how I mean, like Bondi Beach, they use boards. I don't watch that, so we swim with a rope can and loose can. Other beaches do different things. So, but I think that what we wanted to accomplish today, and I think we should end this program, is that there is a long history of lifeguarding and saving people's lives. The people from back then, they were a lot tougher, I think, but we're pretty tough. But they had to rise to the occasion. Maybe they didn't know any better, but they were definitely tough, and they were the pioneers, and they were working with stuff that they were inventing stuff. And now we have the ability to take what they learned, they taught us and showed us. And I think going forward, like I agree with you. We're going to get better and better. We're going to get new equipment. We're going to have better understanding and education. I think that if they should be teaching swimming in school, they should be teaching, rip currents and stuff like that. And you see it now. When I go on my webpage, my app on my phone for weather, there's a whole thing about rip currents now. So I think that a lot of people know that. So hopefully that's going to help. But it's been interesting. I didn't know about Hamilton and the revenue. I didn't know about China. I wouldn't even think about that, So I learned a lot today. It was really informative to me. And so anyway, if we could end this, how about we do this, Sean? How about you put up there? So this is our email address. It's for the people at the podcast. It's Dr. Michael Kachmar. So that's DrKachmar at iCloud. That's ICLU.com. Send us an email on an email. We will contact you. We could get you on the show. We could send you a link. You could come on. We're on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube Live. Today we'll take maybe one or two of these clips here. You'll see some clips that we have, and follow us, comment, and what's the other? We have an
Instagram at
Instagram.
lg.association.
So say that. So can you for this podcast?
lg.association on Instagram. lg.association.
Right. So, and people who are listening to this podcast, if you listen to this tonight or tomorrow or whenever, we go back. You could go back and see our live show and watch the live show if you want, or parts of it. There's a lot of information there that we posted with regard to the information that we talked about today, lifeguarding. So, Sean, I got the wrong Sean. So, what do you want to say? Anything? Say goodbye to everybody. We're gonna get some music here soon.
No, I'm good. Stay out.
So,
stay alive.
Hang loose, guys.
Are we doing?
Oh, one more thing I wanted to point out that I found that was really cool.
What do you got?
Another really cool name. Everard Digby wrote De Arte Netande. Who knows what that means?
The art of swimming.
Well done, Sean.
Thank you.
The art of swimming.
I took Spanish.
The very first illustrated book in the English language is about swimming.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Everard Digby. Brilliant name.
I don't know where you get. All right. Well, listen, Sean, thank you for working the computer today. I'm Dr. Michael Kachmar. This is Off-Duty Lifeguarding with Dr. Michael Kachmar.
The show with 1,000 names.
Lifeguards Off-Duty. Lifeguards Off-Duty with Dr. Kachmar. So stay out, stay alive, stay out, stay alive.
I love this new music.
And we're going to listen to some of our music here. And guys, have a good time.
Let us know if you like the music.
Yeah. We'll listen to a little music and rock a little bit. All right.